what makes you like, what is it that makes you thrive, right? Like, what is it at the core, and how can we do more of that? Like, how can we really create an environment where you just thrive as a human being? Ambition is important, right? If you want to do other things other than just seeing patients, if you want to broaden your skill set, it will require you to invest in yourself. If anything, it just expanded my definition of how I can make an impact.
Dr. Philippe Boutet has a fascinating perspective in veterinary medicine. His whole life has been surrounded by veterinary medicine. His parents, wife, and even other family members are all veterinarians, so he has a natural heart for us in the profession. In this conversation, we talk about how to establish boundaries when it's really hard to leave work, and how experiences outside of vet med can help you grow. Dr. Phil was born and raised in Canada and then flew to Southern California to start his long career with Banfield Pet Hospital. He started as an associate veterinarian and in less than 3 years became a medical director and subsequently has worked in multiple different roles, including interim vice president and currently a director of formulary and supply quality assurance. Make sure you stay to the end to know one of his most grateful gifts he received from Banfield. On to the conversation. When were you interested in veterinary medicine? Are you a lifer, or was it a little bit later?
Yeah, no, my early introduction to veterinary medicine was my dad and mom's practice when I was very, very young. I think the practice was always in the background, right? So we lived across the street from my dad's hospital, so he could take the night shift calls in the middle of the night and just had to walk across the street. And clearly, it's been part of my life since I was a young boy, right? So what I'll say is that the introduction of what my parents did or do really was crystallized one day when my dad invited me to come and watch an emergency surgery in the evening. And I think he was pretty clever. He had like a camera and he wanted me to just be the cameraman, but he was just like introducing me to that whole world of caring for patients beyond just petting them and feeding them. And it was great to just get that first experience. Now, like most kids that see a surgery for the first time, I went through the whole cycle of like getting wheezy or not wheezy, but getting very lightheaded. And so he did the whole juice routine with me and on all that fun stuff. And he got me to take a break midstream, but it was a really cool experience for sure.
That's hilarious. Yeah. So it sounds like from very start, you were kind of on this very straight track to get to vet school. So where did you go to vet school?
I graduated out of Montreal, so University of Montreal, out in Saint-Hyacinthe. I got to experience the Quebec in its full joy, and I made some great friends there. Unlike the other programs in the U.S., first it's in French, so I did all my curriculum in French, and I am French Canadian. And then second is that it's a 5-year program, so a lot of vet students wish they had a little bit more time at vet school. So FMV definitely has that leg up on the rest of the vet schools, because it really gives us an opportunity to learn and grow at a not a slower pace, but just a different pace.
I am with that perspective too. What have you seen as different there with that extra year?
I think the extra year, what it did was that it allowed a little bit more space to just enjoy the experience, right? And so I think one of the key semesters at 3rd or 4th year is not as jam-packed as the other colleges curriculum, and I think that's done by design, so that the students can really take the moment to focus on what's ahead and also kind of learn and grow at their own pace. My experience is like 16, 17 years old now. So I'll say that back then it was a new program, and the goal was to, start introducing some of the like problem-based learning. It also injected like flavors of like the faculty also injected flavors around communication styles and communication skills. We actually did a semester in business. So they had a veterinarian that owned their own business with an MBA that came in and kind of presented us, single unit business tactics and strategies. And so it was really, really neat. So they did some novel things at the time that really helped me. And all in all, I think the experience was similar, just a different pace a little bit probably at the end.
I think there's quite a few veterinary students right now who would love a chance to breathe in their curriculum. And so your parents, they owned their practice. Is that correct?
Yeah, my dad owned his own practice up until, a few years ago. And he had one hospital and 2 clinics in New Brunswick. And my mom actually took a similar path than I did, which is to take much more like the industry approach. So she did an internship. She had a really successful career as a small animal practitioner, and then went into Health Canada and like the food agency as well. So she was a plant inspector, and then she transitioned to Health Canada, which was really cool to see. And it exposed me to a different world of what's possible as a clinician, right? So that was neat to see.
I'll have to get her on the podcast. So speaking of, you decided to take a course more in an industry-like setting. Please let me know about that transition. What were your thought processes, about to leave into vet school into practice?
Yeah, so it started with just getting exposed to what my dad did at the hospital and being an owner. It wouldn't be uncommon that I get a chance to come to the partners meeting to just kind of get introduced to what they were talking about on a weekly basis, and got to see the dynamics there. And then early on, I made a choice to also work in an amusement park and a water park. And so I got to experience and grow outside of my own family, outside of my own walls, and get exposed to an entire different industry. And the amusement park industry is very customer service focused, and high risk, high reward, a lot of fun. And what I learned there was that I just had this affinity to lead people, lead businesses. And so I knew coming out of vet school that I wanted to kind of blend the both to the best of my ability. And so when I, as you progress as a young veterinarian, I got exposed to different opportunities and got the chance to start kind of dipping my feet into people leadership. And from there, I never looked back, right? So I just kept going.
That is really neat to have an experience outside of the veterinary industry to start learning some of these skills as well. So I was hoping you would talk about that.
Yeah.
I see it on the LinkedIn. I was like, oh, I hope we could talk about that. So
yeah, it's actually a lot of people joke around my water park experience, but it was really a defining experience for me in my career. And the folks that and the family that owned it were big influential people in my life. And so it was great and I was fortunate enough to get that experience for sure.
Yeah. Now, where did that fit in? What time did you do the
water
water
park? That was right in the middle of my vet school. So in the summers, okay. I would do my schooling, and then I would like next day drive down and start work immediately. And I would, I didn't have much breaks between my vet school and my summers. And then as soon as the water park closed, I would jump right back into college. So it was good.
You got some experience with your dad being able to see a lot of different leadership in the veterinary field as well. When did you decide to go into Banfield? Because you've been with Banfield quite a while.
Yeah. So that whole introduction came because at one point I was I had the opportunity to be the student ambassador for the SCVMA. So this or SCVMA, Student Council for the Canadian Veterinary Medical Association. And the year that I was coming into role was the year of our national event, like so for all of Canadian students. So I had the host event in my backyard, and I was in charge of like corralling everyone and organizing that. Part of that work, similar to the US, is that you seek sponsorship. And one of the key connections that I made were with the Banfield leadership team. It was back in the early 2000s, and really enjoyed just meeting those folks and getting to know them. And I got to learn more about Banfield as a whole. And when it came time for graduation, I got the opportunity to experience something in the US and different down in San Diego. And I packed my bags with 2 suitcases, an airplane ticket, and moved to San Diego to start my professional career as a veterinarian. So that was back in 2007. So I got to start then.
Not bad location, San Diego.
No, it wasn't. I lived, for those that know San Diego, I lived in Pacific Beach. And so I got to experience San Diego like as a full-fledged experience as a newly minted veterinarian, for sure.
So I'm hoping your experience was good, because you're still with Banfield now. So what was some of your experience working in this type of veterinary environment?
Yeah, so Banfield has been outstanding for me. Obviously, I'm a 16 year veteran now at this point. And what I really liked about when I joined as an associate veterinarian was just the level of like mentorship and collegiality between not just the practitioners, but also with all the associates. And I felt like they really had a really good onboarding program, and we still do. And they really took care of me as a newcomer to the business, especially as I'm going to say a foreigner, as a Canadian coming into a new country, a new place. And I really found a home when it comes to just a professional environment. And from there, I've been, again, fortunate just to have people that have just invested in my development and my career to where I am today, which is, I can't say enough of what they've done so far. So no, it was an outstanding experience. I've made some lifelong friends at Banfield. Some of them are still with us. Some of them have changed jobs, of course, as anything does, but I still keep in touch with a lot of folks.
So the environment, I think, is really important, but I think there's often a lot of things that you did to kind of get to you where you are. So what do you think are some of the things that you did that helped you in developing within the company?
Yeah. Well, so the first piece of advice that I've gotten from a long time ago was that employment is kind of like a relationship to a certain extent, right? And so there are great days, and then there's some bad days. It's not like all rosy, but it requires your investment in the relationship, right? And so it also requires the employer to invest in you, right? So I think it's a two-way street. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that ambition is important, right? If you want to do other things other than just seeing seeing patients, if you want to broaden your skill set, it will require you to invest in yourself, and it will require that you sometimes seek opportunities that may not be as traditional, or people may not understand. And it really takes a moment to break down what you really want to achieve and I say this with my folks all the time. It's like, what do you want to retire as? Like, what's going to be your lifelong achievement? And like, start breaking down like the various things that you need to learn to get to that level of proficiency or that level of leadership. And so when someone presents an opportunity, be curious, be open, and try to understand how that fits within the things that you'd like to learn. And then maybe I'll add a third one, is that patience is important a little bit sometimes, right? And you're like really eager to take on the next role, and listen, attentively, be curious, and it may take a few repetitions before you're ready for the next role, the next, because there's still key things that you need to learn, but don't stop learning. Don't take that as a defeat, right? And I think that was, it's not like I haven't applied or not gotten jobs, right? Like I keep trying and pushing myself hard and asking, about the next role. And those are constant conversations, and it's okay to not be ready. And as long as you continue being curious and trying to learn how you get ready for that next job. So I guess those are the things that I've learned so far.
Can you remember one of the big opportunities where you kind of left the more traditional path for something you wanted?
Yeah. So a lot of people don't know this, but I work in a commercial department. And then what a commercial department, sorry, my dog's asking for food as I'm doing this interview. One of the commercial department is a procurement department. And so it's a purchasing department, procurement, all sorts of terms in business. And so what I had traditionally tracked is that I was a veterinary field leader. I was a veterinary field leader, and then worked in veterinary affairs and programs. And I tracked as a veterinarian into various leadership roles. What the opportunity that I had, though, was to actually transition into a procurement function, supply chain procurement function, which is the current job function family that I'm in currently. And that exposed me to areas of the business that I had no idea existed, completely foreign. And that was probably the 2015 is, I think is when 2015, 2017, when that happened. No, 2017. Since then, I've just, my horizons just broadened so deeply that I've been, again, just grateful that I got that opportunity to get into Mars commercial, which is great. Did
that change where you think you wanted to go? When your horizons kind of widened, you may have seen more opportunities. That kind of changed some of the things you wanted to do?
I think that if anything, it just expanded my definition of how I can make an impact. Right. So I think that I have this deep passion for making a better world for pets and our people that serve them, right, that take care of them. And there are so many ways that you can do that, more than just having the right drugs or having the right equipment or having, the right protocols in place, or even the methods of communication to delivery. There's a lot of things that we do as veterinarians, clinicians, but there's other things that we often don't have any insight in, and that are often super boring, which is clear, for clinicians. So, yeah. So
what do you think you bring uniquely to this procurement role?
What's probably unique in my team, and it's not that it's unique across the board, right? It's the sequential sets of experiences that I've had, and so I think that's specifically in the veterinary space, from a young kid cleaning kennels. I remember my summer project was scrubbing the wrought iron railing in front of my dad's hospital. Stocking shelves in the searing heat. From that moment, right, to where I am today, I've taken the opportunity to learn every tranche of the business, and it's just it's super important that my voice continues to be part of the conversation in the circles that I am in, because it's not very many people that I've had that level of like depth and experience and exposure, and can articulate it in a fashion that actually makes sense. It can be relatable to others that don't have that experience. So that's that. And just to be clear, right? Like my father's a veterinarian, my mom's a veterinarian, my brother's a veterinary cardiologist. I'm married to a veterinarian. My kids, one of them is probably going to be a veterinarian. Like I'm surrounded with veterinarians, and so like I get also get the pulse sometimes of what our industry is doing, and so that's part of our dialogue. Is all very rich history. So I would say that's probably like the rich history of my career is one of the key attributes that I bring to the table.
That is definitely unique, as you get to see a lot of different aspects of veterinary medicine, just being you and who you're around. So, and you're going to start seeing a future generation in your children maybe as well.
Maybe, we'll see. No pressure. No pressure. Yeah.
Something you said earlier, one of the things that really attracted you to Banfield was a mentorship and support. So now that you are on, this higher level where you're a people leader and making impact, do you continue to seek out mentorship even now?
Yes. Mentorship is, so currently I do have a mentor, right? And that person's within Banfield. Again, it's just like, first you have to look for, second, you have to be fortunate enough to have a really good mentor. So, and I've had various mentors throughout my career as well. And so, yes, constantly looking for mentorship is one of the key things that I'm always on the lookout. I think the time between the pauses between mentorship is because, so not every year, I've had one. The pause between the years is primarily because you have to, like, the mentor-mentee relationship is a really important one, and not everyone can be a mentor, right? Like, no, like you have to be dedicated. It's investment, and it's really really an investment from both ends. And so finding that right person to marry up against what you're trying to accomplish takes time, and sometimes it's just being in the right spot in the right place and talking to the right people. And so, yes, mentorship is an extraordinarily important thing for anyone's development. And I, from a direct people management, I try to do the same in my leadership style. The good news is that current state is that my team's very small, and so I can invest almost to the level of mentorship in the folks that report into me. But if I didn't, then of course I work with my direct reports to figure out where they can find mentorship. And then I've never been asked to be a mentor, so that's the other thing. I haven't crested that yet, but that's something that I'm always on the lookout for.
And now you're talking about something that's more formal, like a formal situation that Banfield has. Is that correct?
Banfield does have a mentorship program. It just launched in the last few months, and it's really like an open forum. But what I'm talking about is really, like a really more formal, really structured approach to mentorship, which is, monthly meetings with the development objectives, and then really some really hard feedback, obviously, to grow and learn. It's also, it really is based on this open relationship between mentor and mentee that, there's no reporting structure, right? So there's no attachment to outcomes on the business. It's really focused on your growth and your development, and which is a structured way of doing it.
Yeah, no, that definitely keeps you accountable and more likely to achieve what you're working towards. So that I like that very formal, structured approach. What are some of the top things you've learned being a leader of veterinarians specifically? What do you see as some of like the most valuable things in veterinary leadership?
From the leadership standpoint, the most valuable pieces of feedback, if I were to talk to myself, would be one of our piano co-pilot used to say, don't make assumptions, and if you do make assumptions, assume positive intent, right? And so that's a mantra that a lot of people live and try to, but we often as leaders, we make stories in our head of like what could have, like, why did this person do this, or why did this go the way that it did? And you start kind of like ideating of like, okay, well, why did it go wrong? And instead, I think the question is, what would have led a reasonable leader or a reasonable person to make the decisions that they made to lead to this outcome? And when you can't piece it together, right, then there's either one, you need to ask more questions. You have to be more curious. The second is that there's probably information that you're not aware of or you don't have visibility to that could actually make a difference on the outcome, right? And you may have made the same decision. So having a curious mind with the people that you lead whenever you're going in to talk, to discuss, to engage, whatever you want to name it, is really important. It really makes a difference. It's also kind of like, raising kids, which is, sometimes you get angry, but you have to put yourself in their shoes and like, okay, well, with the limited skill sets and understanding of the world that they have, like, why do they make decisions? And you just find out they're just trying to, they're just an experiment, right? They're just trying to learn how the world works, right? So they're not malicious. They're just trying to figure out how this world and what are the laws of physics, right? So jumping off the chair and hurting myself, it was me trying to do something. The other piece, the other really great foundational learnings that I've had as a leader is around situational leadership. It's an entire training. It's a formal training that any new leader should really take the time to read up on. It's available in books. If you're lucky enough, you can get through the training. And really what it teaches you is that learners are in different phases. So like in different levels of not skill or will, but they're in where they are in the learning curve is skill dependent. So it's like you could have like me or you, like anyone that's like, highly experienced in veterinarian struggle with like setting up an iPhone, right? Like there are like skills, it's really skill set and experience dependent. And as a leader and also as a learner, you have to recognize where you are, and the way that you teach, coach, mentor, lead, or even learn yourself depends on where you're at in that curve, right? So that's why, when you've got someone that's brand new to the business, brand new to the experience, we're gonna have a structured, like, here is your onboarding plan. Here are the things that you're gonna do for the first 8 weeks, right? Because we have to tell them. We have to tell them what are the expectations. And if you fast forward like 5 years from after that, on specific tasks that they should have learned in their first 8 weeks, they may be in a place where you really don't need to check in on them. You check in at the start and you ask them where they're going, and they're really like in a D4, S4, like high level, high performance leader or individual contributor, and you meet them at the end and you talk to them about how the experience went, and you're really curious about from their lens, right? So it's a completely different approach, but it matters. And applying that level of skill set based on situation with all of your people is really difficult. It's really hard. You're going to have a preferential skill, like level that you like to coach and manage at, and you're going to default to, and then you're going to get really frustrated around. Like, why isn't this working? And really, you have to take the mirror and look at yourself and seeing if you're actually meeting your people where they're at. And that's kind of like a long story to say you have to meet your people where they're at.
No, that's absolutely true. I've seen people who like to check in a lot, and then there's some people who are very hands off. So yeah, I can see how they might preferentially go to a certain learner level on that path, and where there might be some controversy for those who don't appreciate that type of supervision.
Yeah. There's people that are really good at telling, right? Like, here's your plan, just go, like, just do it the way that I want you to do it. And then there's really people that are really good at just saying like, all right, here are the objectives. I'll see you in 3 weeks, right? And there's, and leadership is an exercise of like being able to blend your approach. for your people. And because both styles do work just in the right situation.
Yeah. Well, so what's next for you? What project are you looking forward to, or what are you excited to work on next? Or maybe currently, that's fine too.
Yeah, no. I mean, my projects are fun. I think that some of the key projects that I'm involved are, bringing and being part of that quality roadmap at a Mars Veterinary Health level, and working with the clinicians across the various banners and business units to really define how do we create a fiber of quality in everything that we do commercially across the various, we call them banners, like business units. So Banfield, VCA, Blue Pearl, Linnaeus, Anatira, and beyond. So it's really working with the various medical leaders, commercial leaders on understanding what does quality mean in the supply chain, especially in the service business, and how do we do this together, right? How do we collaborate to make a world, and I'm going to say, make a world for better pets, make a better world for pets, right? So that's my next project. That's and working with some of our key leaders, like I said, at an MDH level, to just kind of define what that means and how we do it.
Yeah. So what have you seen so far? I mean, you've been able to experience seeing a lot of different areas of veterinary medicine. We already talked about that. And now you're working with multiple groups all over the world, because Linnaeus and those companies are over in Europe. So what are some of the things that you're finding?
This is going to say, like, it sounds a little bit cliche, but I honestly, just a passion around taking care of our people and taking care of our pets. And when I say people, it's not just like our associates, our clients, right? It's our clients, our associates, and our pets, and really making that impact. The debate often isn't necessarily our objective or our goal, right, of improving health outcomes, improving the client's experience and connection point with our hospital associates, and then creating an environment where people want to, like, join, stay, grow, retire, right? Like, that's usually not, it's how we do it, right? And those are really great conversations, because we have shared challenges, share objectives, and how do we create a solution or solutions to sometimes get better and other times to just revolutionize how we do things, is really invigorating. So I think the sheer passion that every associate has, both at not just Mars Veterinary Health and all the various banners, but like it just Mars is cool. Like it's great. It's material, like you can feel it, right? And that's something that you don't, I've been told, and again, like, I'm a Martian now, so I've been told isn't necessarily common in all walks of life, right? That level of passion for the in the right areas is not something that's commonly seen. So I feel fortunate for that.
Yeah, it's definitely great to have a culture that has that feeling, that everyone is so passionate about that bigger purpose of the better world for pets. But I'm glad that you also talked about really a people focus as well. Again, not just our veterinarians, but just being human beings. We interact with human beings. You may hear the people who say, I wanted to be a veterinarian because I don't like people, but we are in a people business. It is really the people that we interact with. What is a question that you wish people asked more?
Good question. That's actually a really good one. Without people, right, we can't deliver veterinary care. And that's true for the veterinarians, the vet technicians, the veterinary assistants, the central, we call them CSCs, or the client service coordinators or receptionists. And it's also true around the clients, right? And so I think from an associate's standpoint is, I wish we asked the question around, and this is a deliberate question to each individual, and it may differ, is like, what is it that makes you thrive, right? Like, what is it at the core, and how can we do more of that? Like, how can we really create an environment where you just thrive as a human being, right? And so that's the first question. And then the other piece for the client is, and I think we've asked this question in various ways, so maybe it's, but I would just want to know more about what strengthens that connection with their pets, right? What is it that you currently wish that you had that you don't have, and what's missing, right? What is truly missing in your delivery of care? And there's probably a lot of people asking that question. We just need to ask it more often, and continuously questioning over and over again, because I think it's just going to keep evolving. So those are the two questions that are top of mind when I'm curiously looking around and trying to understand, especially our associates. How do we create an environment that they can really thrive? And it's different than surviving, and it's different than living. Thriving is like an action of, like, it's like you're really almost like a flower, like this is flower, just blooming, and that's kind of that should be our primary focus, right? And it is. It's a really challenging question to answer, because every individual is unique, and we've got to blend all that in together to figure out how do we make it achievable across the industry, not just Banfield.
So I'll ask you that question. What is it that makes you feel like you are thriving?
So it kind of goes back to why I enjoy working outside of the hospitals. It's really being able to create dynamic changes that improve the lives of our people and our pets, right? So where I thrive is when we can create some of the new, right? And Royal Canin has that create the new initiatives. But it's really like, it's improving day after day, even if it's 1%, 2%, where we are to where we're going to be. Like, just constantly moving that mile marker, and as long as I can continue making positive impacts, I'm thriving. And there's a whole slew of things that help me thrive as well. But that's I think that's the key thing, right? I feel like I make a difference every day. So that's awesome. I want to keep going.
The floor is yours. What other advice or recommendations do you have to the veterinary profession in general?
Big floor. Don't stop caring, right? That's the thing. Like, I see so many of my colleagues, and my wife, it's so inspiring to see our peers, our colleagues, give as much as they do for the pets and the clients that they serve. And so that is super important. And it's really important that you find your happiness, right, in that space. And we need it. We need you, right? And so I think that's the first. And then the second piece is that, like, and these are conversations that I personally have, and my wife, I'm sure, has. It's like, it's important to set barriers and boundaries, right, for yourself, and taking care of yourself, and having all the resources that, especially now compared to where we were like 10, 15 years ago, around like the health and well-being resources that are out there. Take advantage of those. Time off is important, and it's really important to create that space. And so it's super hard, because I think the common thread amongst all veterinarians is that we have this like high level of like wanting to take care of others, and often to our detriment. And that's something that's going to be constantly probably a push and a pull internally for a lot of us. But it's important that we take care of ourselves. And when you need help, reach out to a friend, reach out to anyone can help, any of your friends. And so Even some of my closest friends aren't veterinarians, and I've had a few beers over things that I just need to chat through, and those have made a huge impact in my life. So so I think, I mean, those are the key things, right? We have such a huge importance and impact to the society, the well-being of families across the U.S. and the world. Our role is awesome, and so let's keep going. There's so many things that we're doing great, so let's not focus on how, it's not focus on the bad. Let's focus really on like how we can continue making a huge impact. And that, I think those are the key things that I want to tell the industry, is like, we've made some pretty significant improvements since the days of like just having steroids and an injectable antibiotic, right? So
Definitely leaps and bounds. Okay, so I am quite curious. I did not marry a veterinarian. I married an IT engineer. So you
yeah,
were asking about, what do you do if you can't set up your iPhone? I thought, well, I call my husband. That's what I do. But
yeah.
being married to another veterinarian, because a lot of our colleagues have married other veterinarians. So what are some unique things about I can see where it could be helpful. Like somebody actually gets it when are having a really rough day. They're like, yeah, I've been there, like right there. But then there also might be maybe hard to have the boundaries. So what is your advice with being married to another veterinarian?
That's actually a really great question. I've never been asked that question before, from another veterinarian, actually. So I'll do my best to answer candidly. So there's two different types of, I think, relationships when it comes to being married to veterinarian. The first relationship is when you're both clinicians in the hospital seeing patients, right? Whether that's the same practice or hopefully not, but if you are, that's a whole other set of things. And then like in separate practices. In that relationship, because I was at one point, and then I've seen my parents grow up in that, it's, boundaries are really important, right? Like really, really important. Like you have to figure out, like, especially if you work for the same employer or you work in the same practice, like you have to like create a space for you to just be you, and not, Phil the veterinarian and Danielle the veterinarian, like just associate veterinarian or owner. Like you just have to create that space where you check it at the door. And that, I say it, but it's really hard. It's really hard because, to your point, like you feel like there's no one else that understands you, right? Other than your peers, whether that's a vet tech and a vet tech, or a vet tech and a veterinarian, or vice. You live in that world, so you're looking for people to understand your perspective and like share in your misery, or celebrate your wins, right? And those are important moments to really do your best to set boundaries. For the veterinarians or technical folks that work in industry, like non-practicing with married with a practitioner, that's just funny, because then like I don't have any, I lose my veterinary card sometimes, where it's like you don't see patients, so you don't get to say much about clinical care. Those again, right? I think that the big piece there is not losing sight that for the ones that are not practicing, not losing sight that that's really hard to be in the clinic, right? And sometimes you need a relief valve, and you're not going to want to necessarily talk about the cases, but it's important too. And it's also really important to celebrate the really cool stuff. And it's also important to like share your life as a non-practicing veterinarian, although like it may not be as interesting for a clinician. It's good to share those experiences and also set the boundaries, right? Which is really, really hard. It's it's probably the hardest thing, not to talk about shop at the table, but it can get like, I've seen how it can go sideways, and so in different iterations, and it's just like like if you have like a whole family of lawyers, right, talking shop around law, or you can see how heated that could get around the table, right? It's the same thing for all professions, I think, to be honest. I think the key thing there is, don't forget to just celebrate the great moments, right? And just like be curious about their days, each other's day, and just celebrating the cases that like no one may appreciate how hard it was, and that's important as well. So
Yeah.
I didn't really help. I just rambled on things there.
No, that's good. At the end of the day, you're first and foremost a spouse, not a veterinarian. So try
Yeah,
to go that direction.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And I think back to my previous point, right? Like sometimes like you're going to listen to a story and you're get into like your judgment train of like, oh, I wouldn't have done it that way. Like just be curious and like keep in mind, like you're not, it's kind of like playing a sport. You weren't on the field with like, the offensive line or the defensive line coming at you in full force and you fumble the ball, right? Like it's just like you don't know until you have your 2 feet on the ground facing the situation. And just be curious and don't judge. Judgment, just like a judgment-free zone.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing.
Okay.
All right. We'll wrap up with our rapid fire questions for you. So, what is something on your bucket list?
Bucket list. I one of the key bucket list items that I have is to do is to complete my instrument flight rating, IFR rating for flying. That is on my bucket list. I almost passed it, and I moved a lot, and I was doing in the transition, moving up to Portland, and it fell through. So that's definitely like a bucket list item for me, just like continuing my growth in something that's completely different. And then potentially maybe doing like tail dragger training and bush flying, trying one of those experiences, but that'll be for later.
That sounds really cool. What is a simple moment that brings you joy?
Simple moment that brings me joy. It's gonna sound silly, but it's the so both my kids are fairly young, so they're like 4.5 now, going on 5, and it's just looking at them sometimes and just like not just seeing myself, but seeing my wife, like attention and like the faces, like recognition, like just the expression, and just them struggling through something that's just like so simple for us, right? And just seeing the growth and the experimentation that they have, and just the joy of life is just they're like small moments that just you got to capture them right there, and those happen daily. And so it kind of brings me back to you just have to like enjoy life right when it occurs right in front of you. So those are the moments. Those are the moments currently in my stage of life that I really enjoy.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
If you could create a law that everyone had to follow, what would your law be?
Oh, that is really a risky question. Good on you for asking. Like that is because you're like, okay, think through this one. Oof, I feel like there are a lot of laws already in place, right, for like preventing bad decisions. But I feel like there should be like a small fine for like people like when we make bad decisions that impact others, right? Like it's like kind of like a penalty in hockey where you just go to the box, think about what you're doing. You get like a fit, like when we in my beer hockey league, we get suspended for a game, we have to pay $15 to come back, right? Like something small, but that's just a recognition that you made a bad choice. And that wasn't like the catastrophic, right? Which those already exist. But I feel like I don't know. I think there's kind of like this thing where I'm like, that was a bad decision. And it's kind of like a swear jar. You just put $15 in the swear jar and you just move on. But
no, I like that. It gives you like, I like the image of go to the box because it makes you can't do anything, right? You just sit there. So you have to think about it and be like, oh yeah, that was stupid.
yeah.
No, I
It's
like
kind
that.
of like, the here's your sign moment. I'm not sure
Yep.
if it's like, yeah, we all know that wasn't the right decision. So here's your sign. Okay, you can survive and keep moving on. So anyway.
That was a good answer. All right. Finally, what is one thing you are grateful for?
One of the stories that people don't know is that I met my wife at Banfield, right? So Danielle and I met at Banfield. And so I've always been outstandingly grateful for that, right? So it's been quite an awesome journey for me. And so I've always been outstandingly grateful for that chance, right? And then just the great life that we've had so far. I've had to make a lot of sacrifices to be where I'm at, and so has she. Being far from our parents is one thing that no kid likes to be, but and so I think that she, I've been grateful every day for.
Thank you for listening to the Veterinary Life Reimagined podcast. Whether you like audio podcast or watching on YouTube, we have both. Please share this episode and podcast with someone you feel would appreciate it. If you know someone who would be a great podcast guest, please check out the show notes to connect me and let me know who that would be. I'll meet you here next week.